We were using shared access to do it, and he went and stood in the way, and I didn't see him behind this big loaded trailer, and I saw I managed to stop with his head, and his head was literally, I was about to run it over with the back wheel of the tractor. Opens the letter. We can't deal with you anymore because you pulled a knife out on the captain's staff.
Oh, no.
They've got my face in the drain. They've dragged me out after CS gassing me eldest lad. They CS gassed my eldest lad, a pregnant woman, in my kitchen. Anyway, they dragged me outside. They absolutely kicked the living out of me. The goal was exposure of the system to make them look exactly what they are, which quite honestly is a load of shit. That's what they are, is shit. And whether you cut this out or not, I'm going to say it, these bastards need to be held responsible for what they've done.
So I'm here with Charles Hirons, and you may have seen some of the headlines about him. I'll just read these off. We've got the Daily Mail. Farmer who sprayed 5 tons of manure on court is evicted. Man admits Derby Crown Court steps dirt protest. That's BBC. The Sun. Furious farmers' legal battle turns dirty when he dumps 5 tons of muck on court. Telegraph. Farmer dumps muck outside court in protest at justice system. And on and on and on it goes. But behind those headlines, there is a heartbreaking story. I mean, I spoke to Charles on the phone. I was so moved by what he said. And it's not just affected him, his entire family, his daughter, Hannah, when you're going to hear what she went through. For example, Charles was beaten up and CS gassed by cops in front of his little daughter. His daughter is so brave that she entered a fire that had been started. Charles has been subjected to 4 fires on his property. She entered a fire to rescue calves and cows, and there's videos of them running around afterwards. Charles has personally rescued over 150 dogs. He's got a massive heart. It's in the right place. And for him to go to absolute hell, and you're going to hear why. And a huge thank you for Charles coming on to tell us what he's been through.
It's a pleasure, Sean. And thank you for having me.
You're welcome. And before this happened, Charles, what was your life like?
I've been very fortunate in that when I look at the way successful people lead their lives, as a youngster I've cruised around the world with my parents and never really wanted for anything. As a child I played in the beautiful English countryside. I had all the toys, and some people say I was spoilt, but I think I was very fortunate.
Were you born on a farm?
I certainly was.
So there's a generation of farmers.
Well, when you talk about the heartbreak, it's a generational heartbreak, because you aspire to make your parents proud. And whilst I think I guess I'm a bit of a loss, really, because with what's happened to me, it was a short, like turning a light switch out, really. Overnight, almost everything disappeared. And when we look, people think that we live under this umbrella of justice in this country. But I can categorically tell everybody that when unfortunate circumstances are in front of you, there is no justice there at all.
Before we get to that, Charles, before we get to that, let's just set the table. Give us more description of what your life was like, what your family life was like, what your daily routine was.
My family life was... I was privileged to get up and be able to look out over the setting of a couple of 100 acres. and every corner of every field and every ditch and every watercourse, I knew where it ran. I knew where the rabbit holes were. And I used to watch my children jumping in the big pond at the end, at the bottom of the field.
How many children?
And on how many children? I've got 3. You see, what I've got to be careful of is protecting people's some identities.
Well, let's just stop a minute, Charles. Do you not want to include those other children?
Well, no, I'm very proud of my children.
Okay.
And of course I want to include them because they're my life. But I do have to protect the identity of certain ones because of what's happened.
Of course.
And even down to a child not carrying my name to protect her.
Wow.
Because I don't want this tyranny that I've been subject to, and especially my daughter Hannah, who I have to be careful talking about Hannah because it's.
Charles, let's just go back to what your life was like before this happened.
Sorry.
So you were describing the farm. Keep going with the description of the farm.
Well, farming has gone through a lot of changes as everybody's seen throughout the world with what's happening today, and the farm progressed and diversified into a whole lot of different things, and there were so many plans that I got for the future to move into the 21st century. I, by default, had quite a move towards the horse world, in that the National Pony Club Championships was run from the property for 4 years consecutively, and also 2 events a year for 7 years of British eventing, which was sort of 600 odd horses over a weekend. Had some quite influential figures, landed gentry at Courthouse, and in some ways some of them were very difficult to deal with. But there's always one person that sticks in mind, and a gentleman called Tim Hadaway, who was a TA at British Eventing, and when he turned up, I knew there wasn't any problem, was a solution, and he was a steadfast encouragement for me. It was just fantastic to see his smiling face, and he's now gone on to be organising the Olympic Games around the world for Great Britain, and I think that just shows the quality of him, and there's a big thank you there for him if he sees this.
Was weddings one of the things you expanded into?
Yes, it was. Now, you'll see a bit of a smile come over my face there, because there was an influential person in my life that I think used to get up of a morning and have an idea, and then I would throw my heart and soul into this idea to perfect it for them, and then when they got up of another morning, they'd have another idea, and all of a sudden, not only would I have my jobs to do, to look after the idea that had been born, and then I would be perfecting another idea. And some of these ideas were pretty good, and if they'd have been managed and actually not cast aside, and they would have concentrated on just one thing instead of, and I was foolish enough to try and do everything, which I was spread too thin, which led to my downfall.
Uh-oh.
And the weddings was another idea that we embarked upon. Took a hell of a lot of doing. It was a most fantastically picturesque setting. And what I would like to do is to say that if there are any brides and grooms that watch this, if you'd please contact me at some point. Phone number's still the same. And I'd like to know how you're getting on because we had some great times together. One bride and groom was when it was in this beautiful summer's day, and they were questioning me about what I did on the farm and what I was, you know, just the day-to-day goings on. And I disappeared for 45 minutes, and the bride and groom actually noticed. And when I walked back into the marquee, they asked me where I'd been, and they were most surprised to tell that I told them that I jumped on a tractor and I went and turned 25 acres of hay, then came back in the marquee for the evening do to make sure that all the people were fed, and it was a great time. And I think that, and this was at the time when I was being attacked from several different sides, and the wonderful people that I came into contact with, and to see the smiles on the faces made my day worthwhile. But there was one particular person, and this is me I'm known for sticking a knife in where I can. There's one particular woman that used to turn up at these events. Known as a charitable person with animals and this sort of thing. Now, with charity, there's not a lot of money, but she managed to go to all these holidays to Dubai. And every time this woman turned up at these weddings, or whether it would be a social event that we'd organised, we had trouble with her bringing drinking under the table. And I was congratulated at how affordable the drinks were, how well it was run. And that isn't just down to me. And again, I'd like to thank the people that saw me through that bad time. The chef, the ladies that came and did the waitressing. It's never just one person. There's a lot of people that helped me through those times, difficult times.
Before the bad time, Charles, you know, there's a stereotypical image of the farmer. They get up at dawn, they're milking the cows. What is the reality? What was your day like, day to day?
Well, the only thing I can say about milking cows was the only time I did that was at college. And that was at the time when I was going out, not coming back from clubs till 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. So this particular night I was on duty at college, and it was a milking rota I was on. And I'm not a defeatist, but I, at about 6 o'clock, turned up, got the cows in, and it was in a sunken parlour. And I bent down to put the cluster on this cow, and this cow shit down the back of my neck. And when I was leant forward, the collar was open, and it went right down my back.
Oh, my goodness.
And I did no more than hand the apron back to one of the people that ran that particular farm, and that's the last time. I won't be tied to a cow's tail for 14 times a week, not on your Nelly.
So what was your daily routine then?
I didn't really have a routine because I was lucky enough to make my own script up. But it generally, I could work 24 hours. We went on a holiday to Jamaica once, and I worked 36 hours straight through, got on the plane and threw myself into a beautiful holiday.
So for that 36 hours, take us through that. What did you actually do?
Sat on a tractor and mowed grass.
For the whole 36 hours?
Yes.
Oh, my goodness.
When I look back at it, it didn't make a lot of sense, but it was because there was an up-and-coming horse event.
Yeah.
We had to prepare the farm for this incoming horse event. Wasted a lot of good grass.
What were the highlights of being at the farm?
Every day was a highlight. Motorbikes, my children enjoying themselves. I mean, my youngest son, Harry, when he was 3 years old, was put in a Ford KA and disappeared off round this field. He could barely see over the steering wheel. And came back, the bumpers were hanging off.
Oh, God.
And what I will say, they had an endless supply of cars, because cars that were taken in to be depolluted and scrapped from this particular friend of mine, I used to go and fetch a car that was working, and then I'd take a car back that the kids had just destroyed. You know, they'd bring their friends round, and there'd be 7 or 8 kids in the car, and they'd come back, and they'd just destroy the cars. So we'd take it to scrap, get another car, and it was an endless supply.
And did the rescuing of the dogs start in the good times, or did that come later?
The rescuing of the dogs, I was affiliated with the kennels of a wonderful man that lived his life for saving dogs. And I would get a call when they got a dog that had been rehomed and perhaps bitten a child or wasn't suitable in the home for whatever reason. And it was going to be, you know, they had no alternative but to put it down. And I mean, I've got scars on my legs. One I can show you very easily was where a dog bit through my fingernail. And what I would say, there aren't many bad dogs, just a lot of bad people that don't understand what it takes to have a dog. I mean, just recently, I've got a couple of Belgian Shepherds at the moment, and it all started, the Belgian Shepherd that I had first, I've had her 8, 9 years now. When I went to see her, she would have literally tore your throat out. And I didn't really want to, because I didn't understand, it wasn't a German Shepherd, because predominantly German Shepherds I've rescued. And she was growling at me, and the chap down the kennel said, she's going to be put down if you don't take her. Well, how could I not? Now, that dog's been with me 8 years.
Wow.
My best friend.
Oh.
And I've recently got not to rescue so much, but a young chap, really, really nice lad, had an unfortunate circumstance with his girlfriend, couldn't keep the dog on, so we've took her on. We're still in touch. He comes for a walk with us sometimes. And this little pup of mine, it's the next generation of dog for me. And I always say to people, and it seems to make them laugh, that if you lock the wife in the boot of your car along with the dog and go back a couple of hours later, who's going to be pleased to see you? Not the significant other half. So dogs are a wonderful attribute, and that's one of the things that's seen me through the tough times.
Yeah.
When my kids were taken away from me Hannah for a short time.
Let's not jump ahead. Let's go into that then. How did this situation start to turn negative then for you? What happened? What was the things that led to all this mayhem?
Well, I think now the dates, I'm not going to get the dates particularly right, because there's so much to talk about. But it all started with a solicitor's practice. And I believe if we're talking truth and fact, we can mention the actual solicitors.
Is it necessary? Because solicitors are trigger happy for getting things removed off YouTube.
Well, I think for the case of what you've said of being removed, we'll leave it.
Okay.
We'll just say a solicitors.
Yeah.
Based in how close can we get with the location?
Do we need the location, really?
Okay, we'll leave that to this. Tricky. The solicitor I was using was intervened. Now, for anybody that's not familiar with that, an intervention of a solicitor is done because of false accounting, dishonesty, malpractice, all the things that we don't want to hear about our solicitors.
Why were you using a solicitor in the first place?
All sorts of things. Attempted, I think, an attempted murder, which was reduced to some lesser charge, which I duly got off because this man was being very difficult, and I reversed over him with a tractor and trailer.
Oh my goodness! Let's slow down. Let's go back. How did this man appear on your farm? Was it?
No. It was at another property that I owned at the time.
Okay. And did you know the man?
Yes, I did.
You able to say what your relationship with him was?
He was a friend of my father's.
So a friend of your father's.
Father died, and he tried to dictate what I was doing, and I think there was a streak of jealousy in it, that he just didn't want to see me getting on.
Yeah.
And it's one of the things that I've suffered from throughout my life because of being so fortunate. There's been a lot of jealousy of where people don't take you for the person they are. They look at what you've got.
Yeah.
And some people think, well, quite frankly, you don't deserve it. But I didn't ask for the responsibility, but I tried my best to do with what I had.
So on the day this man was run over, what led to that?
We were infilling a car park, and he decided that he didn't want us to do it. And we were using shared access to do it, and he went and stood in the way. And I didn't see him behind this big loaded trailer, and I saw I managed to stop with his head, and his head was literally, I was about to run it over with the back wheel of the tractor. And there were a few tense moments when we were in court, but fortunately the judicial system did, look favourably on my case there.
So he alleged that you did it intentionally?
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
We went through to all the expert witnesses and all the drawings, and it proved categorically that I couldn't have seen him.
And were you actually arrested and charged with attempted murder?
It was more the solicitors that were pushing that, and yes, I was arrested.
Wow.
But I can't really. It was a good long time ago, that was.
Yeah. So you were.
He's since passed away. The chap has not. I had nothing to do with that.
So that case then was dropped against you.
Yes, it was. Yeah.
So that's why you had the solicitor was initially for. That's an example of one thing.
That's just an example of one thing, and it might be small land acquisitions that we did. Day-to-day running of the business. Unfortunately, we need these parasites in our lives. And
how many years were you working with this solicitor?
Well, I made the mistake of thinking that he became a good friend of mine, and I thought he was on my side. And I can remember the day of the intervention. We were 4 days away from one of the Pony Club Championship dues, and somebody came to me and said, we've been intervened.
What does that mean, intervened?
An intervention of a solicitor is where their business is another solicitor's that is on an intervention panel for the SRA, which is the regulatory body of solicitors, just walks in and shuts the business down. 26 employees, 3 branches, would just shut down like that. Leave your desk, leave everything there, go away.
And that happened to your solicitor?
Yeah.
Gotcha.
And I at the time, you ask me what has led to the downfall of me and my business and my life, so to speak. Now, there's an old saying that blood is thicker than water, and I will say no more than one person has led to this, and that's my sister. Because never done anything in her life at all successful. Fed off everybody in her life, her parents, her partners, and just been a leech in life. And that is what I would have been using the solicitor for, this ongoing fight with her.
Right.
Now, this solicitor, it's very easy to be wise after the event, but his mind wasn't on the job. And again, I'm probably compromised here, because if I tell you why his mind wasn't on the job, that then is a little too much, is it?
No, please. We want as much detail as possible to understand the mechanics of what's happened here.
Well, as much as I understand it, the man that was in charge of the practice basically borrowed £1 million out the client's accounts. to pay his divorce off.
Gotcha.
Now, looking back when we were in the High Court in London, there was a morning when we'd driven down the M1 and we got into London and we're outside to go into the High Court. And when I look at the film stars going in there, Mr. Bates and all the, I mean, that's another story of just the lunacy in this country. That post office is just unbelievable.
Yeah. So, saying that he took a million for his divorce settlement, is that a fact confirmed, or is that an allegation?
I've got the 2 black bags that you saw me. I would be happy to show you some court documents, some High Court documents in there, and it's just farcical.
Okay.
The documentation and what is put in these documents is farcical.
So you've got all the paperwork to back up what you're saying.
So the morning that we turned up in London for him to represent me in the High Court, we had to rush off to some shop that sold the correct wigs and gowns, and there is a very strong suspicion that this solicitor was not even qualified to dress as he dressed, and he was representing me.
If he had to run off to the wig shop, he probably wasn't qualified, was he?
So we think.
Yeah.
And this is when things start to go downhill rapidly, because it's obvious to me now, looking back in hindsight, that his mind wasn't on the job. He wasn't representing me properly. The correct information didn't come out. And then that gave my sister carte blanche to just completely devastate my life.
Okay, so what was the next step after the court case? You're saying you lost the court case, this guy wasn't focused?
Didn't lose it, but it wasn't concluded as it should have been, and as I asked for it to be concluded. And it was at that time when we moved from the NatWest Bank to Lloyd's.
All right, so what was your relationship with NatWest Bank first?
Well, they were just the bank that I used. And I had a fantastic bank manager there. But unfortunately, what was happening with the NatWest Bank, they were moving out of the country. Everything went overseas. But now I think they bought it back because they realised it was a bit of a mistake, because talking to Abdul, that isn't too fluent in English, sometimes proves a little hard for if you're in business and, you know, not with much time to be speaking and waiting for God knows how long on the phone.
You said you were using NatWest. Does that mean you just had like a normal bank account? Was it loans? Were you in debt, mortgages?
All sorts. It was, yes, we had loans. We had, they were very helpful, and the bank manager I used, in a positive light. Do I mention him? Or?
No, let's just keep names out. So
he was a fantastic person. Anyway.
You moved over to Lloyd's from...
Biggest mistake.
And what happened? Why was it a mistake?
Well, look at the press.
Yeah, but what was the first thing that like happened that went wrong?
Very, very complex. And for me to get into the ins and outs of that, Sean, I wouldn't want to put my foot, you know, in the mire sort of thing.
So were you in debt to them? Did they give you loans and stuff?
I've got it. But the basis, well, I think the basis of it was, the basis of it was that...
Because you told me your property was worth 6 million, right?
Yeah, give or... Let's... The figures, they're my figures.
Yeah.
Now, when you look at valuation and banks and things like this, there will be a whole array of different figures. Now, there are people who are going to watch this and they're going to laugh. Because when you look at these prominent agents and the bigger agents and who they use and who they're involved with, it becomes a very serious thing, and it's always the same names and the same banks that are cropping up with the same problems. And this is where you talk about farms and all this sort of thing. And the dissatisfaction of farmers. I mean, look at what's happening on the continent at the moment. And what a fantastic result they're having. Now, the British farmers, where are they? Because what I will say, and quite often when I'm talking to people, I mean, only on Friday I was sat having a breakfast with a friend of mine in this little roadside cafe, talking to these two retired chaps. And the incident on the court steps came up. And I asked people, when you get round to it, I said, what would you do if you met the person? And I think I can only ever remember two very negative responses, which is fine. I don't mind a negative response. But they'd say I'd shake his hand. So I put my hand out and shake the hand. And they say, oh, no. And people are amazed. And then they want to know why.
So, Charles, we're going to go back because we don't want to jump forward. We want to keep... You understand it because you've been through it. But the viewers and us here...
I did say it would be difficult because there's so much to say.
We need to go through it very slowly in the order it happened. So you've moved over to Lloyd's.
Yep.
Your property's worth $6 million. You were telling us variations of evaluation. It varies depending upon who's doing it. How did problems begin with Lloyd's?
The reason we moved over to Lloyd's is because they offered the money to buy my sister out of the property, which I completely bought. Sorry, this sounds a bit silly, but there's a lot going through my head today. So the money was borrowed to get rid of my sister.
So the money was borrowed to you to
yeah.
get rid to buy your sister out. Yeah, okay.
Of which I will say I continued to pay the mortgage even when the repossession had gone ahead, and I still carried on paying the mortgage.
So was that money indeed used for its intention? It was given to your sister?
Yes, yeah. It was
and so whatever she owned was transferred to you. Is that what happened?
Yes.
Okay.
You see, this is where the problem started, because the solicitor, not doing his job properly, was told and instructed to completely sever any ties with my sister, and he didn't.
This is the solicitor that ran out to get the wig?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. He didn't. They didn't tie the whole job up properly as it was asked to be done. And that left a company and left me unprotected.
From who?
From my sister.
So she came back?
Yeah. And what I don't want to do is go into... I mean, it gets worse than just my sister, because she's got children, and which are my nieces. And when they're used as a tool in her war and her vendetta, you know, and using children, which is... I've seen far too much of this where women use the children against their ex-partners and whatever. They're used as a tool, much like a knife to stick in the father, and children need a father.
What legal action came in against you then next?
So we got the legal case going on with this solicitor. He was intervened. And then the SRA have what they call a panel of intervention solicitors. So it's solicitors around the country that are deemed capable, competent of dealing with an intervention. Now, I would expect... That's the wrong word. No, I think they might as well have called Billy Smartin. Because what a bunch of absolute clowns. And I mean proper clowns. And do you know what actually gives me the strength to say that is, in the end, it turns out that this solicitors have been dismissed from the intervention panel of the SRA because they bundled it up that much. The lead person, the lead solicitor, took early retirement because I was on his case and I was in this solicitor's office banging on the doors because I was that cross with what they did. And the culmination of what they did, it's been in local papers that the solicitor's office that was intervened 4 years after, my court papers were picked up off blowing down the street. Personal documentation. And I was using an MP who is now a whip down in Parliament. And they did such fantastic work for me. The girls in the office, again, it's all right, these people at the top of the tree, but very often it's the people much further down the pecking order that are the real heroes. And the girls in the office were great, and they persisted. And my case has been took to Parliament several times and been spoke about.
Let's not jump ahead to that, Charles. Let's just keep going.
So, going back to
You've been intervened.
Yeah.
These people have come in and they've bungled it. How did they bungle it?
It was very obvious that they were working in conjunction with the solicitor. The dishonesty that was going on was, and they were trading accounts, or not accounts, sorry, they were trading clients. And there were other solicitors that were his friends they were passing these clients to, because it was a real mess.
Incestuous.
A real mess. Very incestuous. And the dishonesty was unprecedented.
How did that affect you?
It just stopped my case in its tracks. So family life, running events, and just...
So your business was halted?
Not halted, no, because I kept it going.
You kept the business going?
How the hell I did it, I don't know. Because at the time all these events were going on, imagine one night, 2 o'clock in the morning, after you've been working the lead up to it, you'd have a month before, then you'd have the 4 days of the event, then you'd have the breakdown. While the event was going on, one of the security lads at night phoned me up, and a girl that had won a class, she'd done very well, probably come from some landed gentry somewhere, and had been drinking excessively, and was found and in a position where she was vomiting and choking on her own sick. She was taken to hospital. Unfortunately, her life was saved. But that's the sort of thing you used to deal with at 4 o'clock in the morning. And you'd have as many as 600 or 700 horses in temporary stables, and it was just 24 hours a day, busy, busy, busy. A fantastic opportunity in life, and I enjoyed it.
So, all right, let me just go this slowly again. So your sister was bought off, but it wasn't done properly, so she's come back at you.
Yep.
You've transferred to Lloyd's, who are about to do something bad to you, I'm imagining, and your own solicitor's embezzled $1 million, and he's got this incestuous relationship going on with the people who are supposed to be investigating him. Now, how does this take a turn worse for you next?
So it stopped my legal case in its tracks.
Against your sister?
Yeah. Now, the solicitors that intervened wouldn't let me have my paperwork back, to a point of where it got very nasty. Personally, because they were trying to dictate to me where I go and what I do. And they'd got a stranglehold on me. Now, they were saying I owed this solicitor money.
For what?
Fees and stuff. Now, that... Yes, there would have been some money owed. But the thing is, you can't... He was fighting my case, and then for that to happen, why do you pay a man that's messed things up for you like he did?
How much were they asking for?
I don't have any figures. Never have had.
Just rough. Oh, they never gave you any figures?
No.
Okay.
No. It would... The thing is, it was... And there was a friendship there. And that's quite sad. But I don't think, from his point of view, it was a genuine friendship. Mine, it most definitely was. I mean, he phoned me up one day. Could I go and move his plane? Yeah, of course I can. And which we duly did. Not the everyday request from your solicitor, but we did it. And that actually got burnt in the fire of the barn that you saw going up. So the solicitor, the intervention solicitor, then gets all the paperwork. You think they would take the paperwork. I can give you documentation. There are news reports. There have been meetings. They did anything other than half a job. The officers, 3 or 4 years later, there were cases in court that were took to court where down and outs were going in the offices and stealing his legal books. This solicitor, because he was still working in the offices. I mean, it just beggars belief that the incompetence that the SRA, and I'm not talking about dog and stick solicitors, I'm talking about a big solicitors that was removed from the intervention board because of their own incompetence. It's fact, absolute fact. So it gets even worse because for years I was protesting that my files were missing, and it took a hell's own job to get them back. And I'm not talking about 1 or 2 files, I'm talking about a stack of boxes that's the size of this room, and that I've got pictorial evidence of it all. 36 boxes or something like that, which have been round, they've been up and down to London to solicitors, they've been to everywhere. And I'm sick of hauling them about.
So they've asked you for fees. They've not given you an amount. What happens next?
Couldn't get the paperwork, they were withholding that from me, but eventually they released it, so they realised, I think that was their admission, that he's messed up for me. And in desperation, I mean, several MPs took an interest in my case, and then their interest waned when they realised just how deep, dark and murky it was. And when they start picking the top off of it, and they know there's going to be retribution on people, that's when, that's too hot for me to handle. Now, very interestingly, I kept banging on and nobody would listen. Nobody at all would listen. I've got files missing. There's stuff missing. No, you've got it all. The solicitors have been disbanded. Yeah, we've given you all your stuff back. No, you haven't. Well, why believe a fool like me? I'm just some carrot crunching farmer. Straw chomper, call me whatever you want. Muck spreading thug. And I've just lost my thread a minute. So I'm going on about this paperwork missing. And this MP jumped on it for me. And I thought I got a real... And the story of my life is being abandoned by people that I thought I could trust. My sister for one. A significant partner for another. And Christ, I would like to tell you some of the stories of some of the stunts she pulled. I mean, I could make her look... She'd be that ashamed of herself. But there you go. That's another thing. We'll leave that alone for the sake of the kids. So continually, and I'm like a dog with a bone. I will not leave this alone ever. People tell me to give up and just get on with your life, Charles. No, there are people have got to be brought to the table with this. It's got to be done. So then this MP campaigned for me, and very, very vigorously. And I was elated with what she did for me. And when we got the letter to say that there were 86 files, now that's 3 boxes worth, 3 of these 2 foot by 2 foot boxes full of files. Now that's a big hole to have anybody's evidence, should you need it. Now, how does that happen when you have these so-called competent, and they're not run-of-the-mill solicitors, they are the higher echelon of the solicitors. How do they do this? How did they mess it up so badly that my paperwork was blowing down the streets of one of the local towns, picked up by somebody? And on top of that, in those 2 black bags, Sean, outside, there are I've got 40 names of people, 40, that still haven't had their paperwork back from the intervention. Why will the legal system not listen to me when I've got this? I've been to 40 different people, and I've tracked them down. And you know, one of the people, and there'll be more than one now, started to cry. And when asked why, his mother had just died, and it was all about the paperwork for the conveyancing over the house. And his mother had died. And this is what these overpaid. What? How do I refer to them?
So how did it get worse for you?
So the 86 files. So I get the letter to go and pick. I think I can probably say where the files were located. They were located at the Capita Secure building where, as I understand it, that's where the paperwork goes. When the solicitor intervened, this is where it goes, in Coventry. So we've got all people's paperwork. Again, I've got photographic evidence. It's protected by GDP and all this crap that we talk about nowadays. And I drove straight in through the gates, pulled up to the big roller shutter door that was half open, and there were pallets with solicitor's name and client names and everything on them. And I could have literally just picked the boxes up, put them in the back of my pickup. But I didn't, obviously, because it's not my business. And I walked in and the staff were not very nice. But anyway, that didn't really... I had tears in my eyes of just relief because I got these boxes back. And I did no more than go in my pocket, pull my knife out, cut the parcel tape on the boxes, close my knife, put it back in the pocket. And I had a look at yeah, these are my files, just check, yeah, okay, so that's all good. And being the grateful soul I am and like to show my appreciation when people do good, I drove straight to the MP's office, walked in, and I noticed a change in the manner of the girls at the desk. I can't remember the names now, but they were lovely. I said, what's the problem? There's a letter on the desk. It says, can you read that, please? Opens the letter. We can't deal with you anymore because you pulled a knife out on the Capita staff.
Oh, no.
Why would I do that? When somebody has given me back what I've asked for, that's when you're grateful. So that's a lie. And I turned around to them, I said, right, Capita Safe Storage. I said, they're not very safe. But they'll have cameras, won't they? Get the CCTV. Just cast me to the side again. Why? So then we get the paperwork back. We then go to a solicitor, a highly recommended solicitor in London. And I've got to say that he was a real breath of fresh air and did try, but I don't know why it all went wrong. But I should never have gone down to London. It was a waste of time. But one of the funny things that I did, I came out with a cheque once with £100,000 from the Hawes Bank in London. I've got this cheque. You know, there's the Hawes Bank, and then what's the other old bank that's not... Coates Bank, that's right. That's not commonplace, because we all know Lloyds, we all know NatWest, but Hawes and Coates, they're the higher echelon of the banks. And I went to I think it was the HSBC in Long Eaton, because I wanted to just have a separate account. Sat down with the bank manager with this cheque from the Hawes Bank for 100,000. I says, I don't want any credit cards. I says, I just need somewhere safe to keep my money. I says, and occasionally draw down on it for whatever bills were. They flatly refused to take it. I wanted to deposit £100,000 in their bank. They flatly refused to take it. So it's a catalogue of the system. When everything's at our fingertips, But yet, when you're in trouble and when you've got a problem, nobody wants to know.
How did it get worse from there?
Again, being busy every day with livestock, the events, the day-to-day running of a farm, and it wasn't just farming I was doing all sorts of other contract work, and very, very busy life. A very interesting life on a daily basis. No 2 days were the same. I had a big livery yard, and that's always interesting. I'm not sure whether it was the women that were more trouble or the horses, but it was so. This is where it gets very, very difficult to me, because it all became a haze. So you're trying to fight the legal battles as well, trying to get a solicitor, a credible solicitor. And when you're fishing about for advice, and I'm just trying to piece it all together. There's such a lot to say, and to get it in the right order. But I can remember, I think then we go to when your family starts to fall apart, and the significant people in your life just prove, well, in this particular situation, this one person proved, I mean, my sister had gone. I chose a partner over my sister, which wasn't a mistake, but choosing the partner I chose in the end proved to be a mistake as well. And the people you expect to stand by, you don't. Because while I talk about this wonderful life that I had, there was also the pressure that I used to bear on a day-to-day basis. Looking back, I don't know how I managed to sort of separate anything from anything. But, you know, we did relatively successfully. And then I guess where it all goes wrong is that this, down to the early days and part of the case with the solicitor, whilst we've completely separated family ties and we've got the place in our own ownership, I'd looked after various other properties for years, and even to date, and I can go into my black bags there and I can show you invoices for £174,000 that to this day are still unpaid for work done over a 10-year period. So it wasn't just, you know, while my sister was off doing what she did, telling her lies and just spreading her poison, as she always has done throughout her life. You know, I was looking after the properties because it was the responsible thing to do. And then I get this demand, which I suppose the demand turns into bankruptcy for £142,000.
From who?
From my sister.
From your sister.
By the company that got through the net with the solicitor that didn't do his job properly. Now, the company that was used as a vehicle to bankrupt me, in simple terms, I think I have a 39% share, and it's a little bit more complicated than that, but I have a 39% share in. So the company that's bankrupt me is 39% mine. I mean, and if we can remember this moment, you're visibly shocked by that, Sean.
Yeah, because if they're bankrupting you, they're transferring your assets to them.
Well, this is what
you get 39% back.
This is what I don't understand. Now, if I could tell you something that'll shock you even more, but I don't want to say that bit on air because it brings minors into a situation. So, I mean, I don't know whether you make a note of that or whatever, but if you ask me a small question on that when we're finished, you know, again, you'll be even more shocked. So I get hit with this bankruptcy suit, and me thinking, being the simplistic carrot cruncher that I am, that we've got 174,000 quid, and this solicitor had been telling me, and we'd fought it, and it had been done and documented. And, you know, this, I mean, one of the most dangerous things in litigation is this 6-year thing, statute law. Are you aware of that?
Statute of limitations?
Yeah. So the statute, if you're out of time, you're out of time. Well, it's been mentioned, you know, and it wasn't going away. The solicitors knew it was there and everything. So I'm thinking, you know, I'm going to go and stand in court, litigant in person, because I can't afford a solicitor. They've stopped me in my tracks. So litigant in person, and I believe the judge has a responsibility to a litigant in person to sort of go easy on and look after him. So we've got 142,000 versus 174. Now, if I've got my back against the wall, I'm going to do a bit of a deal. And I'm thinking, well, we'll just cancel the 2 out. So we turn up in the court in Derby, and the judge looks down his nose at me, bangs his gavel down, off you go. So that's where the apple cart, the wheel fell off.
When you say off you go, what do you mean?
Well, that's just my determination of the court just dismissing you like you're a piece of dirt.
So you were dismissed, but she was awarded, their side was awarded.
Yeah.
Which then...
And I was struggling to find a solicitor to represent me because of just, when missing paperwork, just a whole array of problems.
So if your farm's worth 6 million, could you just not borrowed some money and paid that 170,000 off?
That's where it all gets a bit complicated, because it was left a little bit. And what I'm doing here is I'm leaving myself open to have some holes picked in this, because it's just, like I say, there's always another side to a story. Now, and I'm not going to say that I've done everything as timely as I should have done. But when you've got kids, when you're taking 4 kids to school, looking after them, you've got brides expecting a wedding, which we didn't fail with one of the 16, and I'm sure those brides have backed me up. You know, and largely what I've had to do for a long time, people, I mean, it's been said, oh, you've gone quiet. We thought you'd rolled over. No, not at all. I've been quiet because, Sean, there are times when, if I hadn't have done and been quiet, there are some people that they want to be thankful that I've been quiet.
What year are we at now in the story when the judge went against you?
I couldn't begin to... I mean, it's almost like a bomb's gone off in my head. The information's there, but it takes time to settle down.
Okay, so what happens next then?
So then, obviously, you get the letters, the debt collectors, and debt collectors are just plain parasites. They have a piece of paper, and because they've got that piece of paper, they'd take your kids if they thought they could sell them. If they thought it was legal, they would take your children. And I was fighting that off, and then your personal life's collapsing.
So were they showing up on your property?
Oh, Christ, all the time.
What were they doing?
Just harassment, isn't it? And
so verbal harassment, or were they taking property from you?
No, they never took any property, because I've got electric gates, and generally my persona persuades them otherwise. You get the odd ones that would be a bit more difficult than others, but they're all very brave, but they're just nasty people. Nasty people. You get the odd ones that have got a bit of a heart. And don't get me wrong, within some of these people, there were some people that were wonderful. They understood what was going off. And it's almost like a snowball that you throw down a hill. it just gathers momentum, and you just can't stop it. And there was, when they saw the house and the situation, and they could get a handle that there was money there, they were all interested in you for a start. But as soon as they could see that, you get to a point, they're not interested. I mean, we even went to the Citizens Advice Bureau, and bless him, he's dead now. This chap introduced me to a Sikh gentleman, of whom, when you sit and have meals with the family, and how the Sikhs revere the families, and you're taken into the home and introduced to the grandfather. And the thing that really, really captivated me, and I thought we're on a real good deal here, and there's something going to happen good, and we can do good things for people. I had no less than 45 cons from Sudbury Open Prison that helped me with one of the events. And I'm talking about big, burly, what's the correct in this society we live in? I'm not sure. I don't want to offend anybody. But they weren't, it's a reference to colour. What's the correct terminology?
Yeah, they're black guys or white guys or whatever.
Black guys that made me look small. Now, some were been in Sudbury, they were lifers, I think lifers or whatever, but they've been in for murder and all sorts.
And these are probably the most honest people you've dealt with at this point.
And what I did, I made a point of going around these lads, making sure they got coffee, sandwiches, looking after them, and they were in the English countryside. And you know something? That was pleasurable to me. And some of the conversations I had with those lads, and I had to give them a bit of a steer and say, look, lads, we're having a nice day here. You know, if we start doing that, we're going to get ourselves into trouble. And the characters of them. And at the end of the day, when they got in the minibus and went, every one of them got out that minibus to shake my hand, and I purposely went to thank them for what they'd done. And you know the noticeable thing at the end of the day, and it's a bit silly, but we couldn't keep them lads in coffee. We used more coffee at that event than ever we used before. And what the penchant for coffee was, I don't know, but they like coffee.
What? So, all right, so you're getting harassed now by debt collectors.
Yeah.
How does it get worse from there?
The official receiver comes in.
The official receiver.
Now, that particular day, I don't know why, but I got on my motorbike. I've got quite an iconic motorbike that I've had since it was new. That never got mentioned it's never been mentioned at all in the list of things I'm supposed to own, because it was, that's another, we're going to go on to that in a minute, because that I do want to make a point of. And I went to the official receiver in Nottingham. The lady that interviewed me I've no axe to grind there. Lovely girl. She's got a kid with cerebral palsy, I remember that, and she used to tell me what a difficult time she was having and what have you. And anyway, I got passed on to another, and you know, they farm the work out, don't they? And then that's where it really did go downhill.
How?
Because if we mention no names, but I say this receiver is nothing but a scumbag and a crook, and I mean a proper crook, previous, just a bad person. And again, Christ, I could get myself in trouble if I told the truth here of just how I want to say it. But he sent one of his sidekicks to start documenting assets and things like that. Now, a 5-year-old kid at primary school could have done a better job than they did. because they hadn't got a clue. And what's more, they didn't care. They're on about shutting the wedding events down, and I had to go through that pain. I said, look, this is all contractual. These brides are expecting a wedding. I am not going to have these brides turned away, because that is just gets the whole married life. And I had to fight. And Sean, when I mean fight, I had to fight vigorously to keep those weddings. And they're on about putting security on to watch me to take the money. I said, you can't do that. But anyway, that all just dissipated into nothing, because what happened was, and this is where it comes into land grabbing, and we can't mention the banks that are land grabbing, that are, like molecules come together with agents, they connect together, and they are land grabbing farmers, because farmers are particularly vulnerable people because they're busy. There's certain times of the year when they have no time other. If they've got to get the crops in, or the cows are calving, or the corn needs to be set, or whatever, they don't have any time. And this land grabbing thing is a massive thing, and I feel that partially that's what I'm a victim of, because they don't see the saviour of anything. What they see is that he spoke everything else, the ancillary things around the property, is inconsequential. They just want the property. And then what they do, these vile people, I mean, and one of them, I don't know whether we might have lost a video, but verbally bullying my daughter when she's on her own. A 14-year-old girl.
14-year-old. Do you recall what was said?
Just... No, I can't, but it was basically the disdain that he spoke to a young girl with when she was trying to protect animals, cows. You know, we had our own horses. And, one of the worst things about this, Sean, and coming actually into... They could have very easily taken a small parcel of my estate and given it to my daughter to put her 3 horses on. Instead, that girl, she's very, very successful in what she's doing now, and I am so proud of her, gets up at 5:30 in the morning. She goes to do her horses, then she goes to do a job, then she comes back at night to do her horses. And her horses, bearing in mind, at the worst, I had 74 liveries. And this livery yard she's on at the moment is not the best, but she's making do. And one of the things that's driving me is I want to see my daughter with her horses in her own stable. And whether you cut this out or not, I'm going to say it, these bastards need to be held responsible for what they've done. To my daughter, I'm not really bothered about myself, because I'll get through life one way or the other.
All right, so let's go back to what's happening in the order. So you've got the receiver, it gets farmed out. They're trying to appraise the value of your property. They're saying nasty things to your daughter. How does it get worse from there?
We got 5 security on for 24 hours a day. There was stuff being stolen out the primary house. Fires. And the police... I think if I said Derbyshire Police over the last... There's just been a... I've got to be very, very careful with this, because this is delicate, because my losses are nothing compared to what I'm going to touch upon now. But there's just been an inquiry into the death of a young lady 2 years ago who tragically, through tragic circumstances, lost her life. And I think there's 5 or 6 police officers been relieved of the jobs through incompetence because of that, and they were found at fault, Derbyshire Police. Then another situation where, and I'm connected to this situation, another 5 or 6 police officers lost their jobs. Could have been more, could have been 7, I think, over crimes and bullying and all this sort of thing. Now, that's just 2 cases of the incompetence of Derbyshire Police. Now, not to say that every police officer is bad, because they're not, but even the good ones become bad because the majority of them, all they're interested in is covering themselves for their own pensions, their own self-gotten gains, and what's coming from up above.
Charles, you said fires. When did you first become aware of the first fire?
Well, I was removed from the property and my daughter was living in a caravan.
You were removed from your own property?
Yeah.
How did they remove you?
Because it had been repossessed and
The whole property got repossessed?
Everything.
Okay.
Now, what I will take you back to, there was a debt of £142,000. That's what this all started off. Yes, there was borrowing from the bank. There was also a very well-written exit strategy. So if there was a problem, that part of it could be sold off to save my family home. Not interested in any of it. And bearing in mind, the mortgage was still being paid, I was still, even though they bankrupt me, closed all my bank accounts, I was still paying the mortgage.
If the property's worth 6 million and they were after 142,000, how can they justify taking everything?
If it was worth 4 million, if it was worth 3 million, how can they justify taking everything, Sean?
It's just a land grab. And where's it all going?
Well, there's another. There's one person, a female, that just like an old crow on a wire, sat there watching, and it's all been carved up, and it's just it has smashed to bits a small part of Great Britain, and now I look and I think, would I ever want to go back to that hellhole because of what's going on around it?
Tell me about the fires, Charles, because you showed me a really moving video earlier of your daughter rescuing animals. How did that come about? What was the warning signs? Did it, what was going on that day?
God knows on that day, but all I know is I've got a daughter that when you say something special, that doesn't even begin to say what she is. Because when her mother came to me after I'd known her for 6 weeks and announced she was pregnant, it was quite obviously there was an agenda behind it all. And I'm even going to call it a mistake. But do you know something? One of the most wonderful mistakes, one of the most wonderful things that shouldn't have happened, that did, is possibly, that's what, she gets me out of bed every day.
Let's go back to the fire.
So that girl, what I'm saying is something special. She's asleep in a caravan some 300 yards away. But because of farmers, and when you're in tune with a property and a house, the creaks, the cracks when it shuts down at night, or the dog on the stones outside, or a dog that barks, you become in tune with things. But then when you're from the farming fraternity, it brings a whole new level of awareness. And my daughter possesses that. And I think if you ask her personally, I think it was one of the dogs that alerted her. And I'm talking about, this is the other farm. There's not just one property, there's several. 300 or 400 yards away. And in the dark of night, on her own, with the dogs and security guards. Now, did you see a security guard in that video? No, there were 5 of them. Now, how much must that have cost? And there's things that's going to... there are more things, Sean, that you will be surprised about. So none of the security guards helped her. And there were 4 big galvanised doors tied in the top of this barn on nylon rope. She got the cows. How the hell that girl got those cows out, I don't know, from behind the barriers and everything, but she did.
And this structure was on fire?
Yeah. She went into that burning building. And shortly after she got the last cow out, these big 8-foot galvanised doors dropped out the top of the barn on the floor where she was stood. She could have killed her. And then when... I mean, I had to put up with people turning up to walk around my property and catching these people on my carpets. And I'd worked hard. I had a roll of carpet bought from America in the bedrooms upstairs. And it was like walking through the grass on the lawn when it's not been cut. Walking around in the dirty boots. Soul destroying. I had one person come to look round the property. And I'm taking his wife a bouquet of flowers because there was such wonderful people. And I wished I could mention his name. A very successful man. A gentleman, and his wife was lovely. And I took her a bouquet of flowers because they refused to take the property on because of the way the agents were mis-selling it. And, you know, and then you could see just the vultures that were circling round. And even to this day, through a very prominent solicitor, through a man that's fighting Lloyd's Bank, and I commend this man, 20 years he's been fighting, and I commend him. We won't talk about his case, but he's been bought off and hushed up, and he threw me in the long grass. And I believe it's along the lines of a bit of a NDA hush-hush type scenario.
Are these people Freemasons by any chance, any of them? Has that got a role in this?
Well, yes. Well, there is a role in this, but on a different side of it.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, there is. Now, what I've lost my thread again now.
So your daughter just rescued the cows, and then you get into you end up getting CS gassed in front of them.
That's way previous. That's a long time, 10 years before.
What happened there then?
Went to buy some bolts from a company in Long Eaton, and the ex-partner's ex-husband was there, and he grabbed hold of me, tore my shirt, which was a mistake, so I picked him up, carried him outside, slapped him against the wall, and said, "You don't really want to be doing that, sunshine," and put him down again. Got in my car, and he threatened me as I was driving away, so I rang the police. I said, "Right, you're going to get a report of assault, nothing to do with me, blah, 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 blah." I said, "He started the situation, so everything's all right, nobody's been hurt, and just I made the report first." Sunday morning, sitting having breakfast in the countryside, beautiful day, police turn up, let them in through the electric gates. Come in, constable, cup of tea while I finish my breakfast, because I don't sort of always do as I'm told straight away. He sits down, doesn't want a cup of tea. Finish my breakfast, go out to the police car, open the front door to get in, and he jumps on my back. So, off you go. Runs in to get the phone the solicitor up, and we're doing it's ever so funny, doing cat and mouse around the house. He couldn't catch me. And I'm in and out of doors, locked a door in front of me, and then he's looking through this door at me, and I've locked the door, so he can't get at me, and he was proper pissed off. Then the next thing you know, all hell breaks loose. Got 10 coppers. And they are big and brave, aren't they? When they've got my face in the drain, they've dragged me out after CS gassing me eldest lad. They CS gassed my eldest lad, a pregnant woman, in my kitchen, were just proper bad news. Anyway, they dragged me outside. They absolutely kicked the living out of me. But didn't matter, I'm a big lad, I can stand that. They've got my face down. I've got a scar on one of my eyes here where they kicked me in the face with the boots. And as a child, there was a drain in our yard. And I've always gone outside, rather than waste water, I'd pee in the drain. And that moment when my face is in the grate and I'm thinking about, I've peed in this drain all my life. this copper's got his foot on me, he'd spray me with CS gas. My tenants, they've got guns up the noses. I mean, just hooligans. Then they get me away from the house, pushing me down the drive with my hands behind my back, pulling my arms up my back while they're handcuffed. And I'm shy. I says, go on, break my arms. Shoved me into my gates, and I wouldn't open the electric gates for them. Oh, it caused them a right load of grief. I gets a charge of assault on 4 police officers. And I've no reason to lie in front of the cameras. I never touched one of them. Why hit a copper? There is no mileage in hitting a copper because their gang's bigger than yours. I ain't frightened of them. But there's no mileage in fighting with them because you're going to lose that battle. And it gets even worse when we're in court in Derby. I goes to the toilets, and never ever since have I stood at the centre urinal. I always stand against the one at the wall. 2 police come in, both urinals. They didn't want to go to the toilet, and I'm there with everything hanging out. And it was the perpetrator of the problem that they'd come from Nottingham over the border into Derby. They were proved wrong because he said he was taking me to a designated police station which was Long Eaton for arrest, which wasn't designated. The long and short of it is, one came in, there were 2 waiting under the bridge in another car, and it turns out that this copper used to play squash with the lad I'd assaulted. So anyway, when I'm at the urinals, police are there, one either side. I says, are you using the urinals, lads? I said, oh, it's just a pair of quicks. I says, come to harass me. Zips up, walks out, and what was stood outside the door? 2 armed police officers stopping people coming into the toilets. So not only did everything about it, and the judge did get a handle of that, and I was found not guilty of any assault on anybody. But do you know what they did? They've just got to prove the point, haven't they? Because they got me for resisting arrest, which I didn't do because I went to the police car voluntarily. Intimidation. Oh, total. And, I mean, I've got videos on my phones of where they blatantly lie. You go into Ripley head office because I'm saying I want to see the chief constable, and I'm filming them. You can't film in here. Well, I think you'll find that this is a public area, so I can. Not in the chief constable office. But so your average Joe, when a copper's saying something, they take it for read. But they're liars. They are intimidating liars.
All right, so
not all of them.
We were at the point then where they've took your property now, basically.
And this is where they put security in.
Security.
And the place is being set on fire. It's being ransacked. I'm not going to be too specific about this because they don't know I know. Because I used to go back into the property at night to protect things. And this is how I know things went missing. And things of significant value. My own property. And security hadn't got a clue. And there were 5 of them there. I made sure they got tea and coffee. I looked after them. And it just beggars. But now I'm starting to talk about it. I mean, the 2 bags, Sean, that I brought with me, you'll see there's dust on them because they've been set aside for a while. Because things have stopped. And our mutual friend has been working, speaking to yourself and whatever. Now I've got this opportunity to hopefully further this now in some way, shape or form.
So what is your goal now? I mean, did they get everything? And did they just put you somewhere?
No fixed abode.
You've got no fixed abode?
No bank account.
No bank accounts?
Nothing.
You got nothing?
Do you know?
Where do you live?
Now here's the crux.
Yeah.
I had this prominent solicitor that is very, very successful.
You're referring to the solicitor you started out the story with, the one that got the wig?
No. This is the one that is involved in recovering money from Lloyds Bank. He's very good. And he agreed to take my case on no win, no fee. But I think due to a whole lot of things, personal issues and what have you, I got thrown into the grass.
What's Lloyds Bank's role in this? Because you started out telling us how they got involved, but did it progress with them?
Lloyds Bank were taking money from a bankrupt. I was paying the mortgage whilst being a bankrupt.
So your mortgage was with Lloyds?
Yep.
Yeah.
But I thought it was the duty of the insolvency practitioners to know the full financial ins and outs and what have you about a business when they take it over. But this what adds credence to my story, that they're not interested in the ins and outs. All they're interested in is asset stripping. Now, just the other day, when I knew I was coming to speak to you, in your locality, there is a building company that's just gone into receivership, and I'm even going to change the figures. The receivers say they believe that it owes, let's say, 10 million, but actually it could be 40 million. Now, I thought it was a receiver's job to get accurate and proper information. But no, they clearly don't give a rat's arse about anything other than their own fees. And very often, their own fees sap anything that is left to pay for the people that do suffer, the business that may have supplied to the company or whatever. They're just legalised thieves. And it's the government that's overseeing this.
Charles, what led to all these headlines about you? The manure or the muck on the court?
This is where you ask where things started to go wrong for me. Well, that's where they started to go wrong. Now, one of the things that I would like to say is it wasn't manure. I wouldn't go into Derby and spread muck in Derby and pollute the streets or make a smell that offended people or anything like that. It was bark chip off a kid's playground.
Okay.
So it was clean. And when I was litigant in person again, the court usher comes to you and they hand you a means form. So what I do, chuck the means form on the floor and steal the stationery. Every time, steal the stationery. And then I get into court and this usher comes again, gives me another means form, so I throw it on the floor. The court usher picks it up and goes to the judge, and obviously they have the little talk, and the judge says, why won't you fill the means form in? Well, with this story that's unfolding, what are my means? What can I tell you? So the judge then addressed me and I said, well, Your Honour, I says, what business is it of yours? I says, how I pay my fine. I says, so long as I pay my fine, will you be happy with that? I says, whether it's cash, cheque, beneficiary, or any form of other payment I make, so long as it's legal, are you worried? And they looked at me with open eyes and like a rabbit in the headlights and said, well, no, not really. I said, well, fine, that's that sorted then. They fined me 1,200 quid. Now, why did I do this? Because as the security guard at the court, because I was frequently in there for whatever was going on, you know, and there's been quite a sad situation with my children where I was reported for hitting them and all that sort of thing. And I think my daughter Hannah had extinguished any rumour of that when, you know, she's stood by my side and never left. So the security guard came out and said, why did you do that? And he actually called me Charles.
Why did you throw it on the paper on the floor?
No, this is when I spread the muck on the court step.
Okay, yeah. Well, before you get to that point...
Sorry.
Why did you... To take us through the day of getting the muck.
Well, it wasn't the day, Sean.
What was it that triggered you to get the muck? Was it the discussion with the judge about the payment? Was it the complete frustration just boiling over everything?
Injustice.
Injustice.
Because we say the judicial system. The judicial system is that broken that it doesn't even know what it's doing itself. It's overburdened, it can't cope, and it is unjust in itself.
Were you venting or were you trying to make a point? Did you have a game plan? You were going to use this to get media attention and tell them the injustice you'd gone through. What was going through your head?
It all started probably months before, and there's books been written on people that have done certain things. This film's been made, and I'm not going to give the game away because there's something else in the pipeline. But this one's a bit more well thought out, because what I wouldn't want to do is go and put myself in a situation of incarceration, because I wouldn't want to burden the taxpayer anymore. Plus, I like my freedom and time with my kids. So it started way before, this brings me to mind of a farmer friend of mine who a very, very clever, switched-on person, and he said, "When friend becomes foe, all the secrets the world will know." And what a true statement that is. Because I got somebody that was backing me very vigorously. Now, a proportion of my estate was handed over to an organisation that was another chance for troubled children. And when I used to go around in the tractor, and there was one particular girl I remember there, a real character, and she used to come and sit on the tractor with me and have a bit of a ride about. And then I go around on the quad bike, and the kids would come and sit on the quad bike. And the joy that gave me, that I was helping children. But sadly, it turned into a very, very toxic family that were running this. And whilst there was an element of they were doing it for the kids, it was very much financing the families. You can see, now in retrospect, I can see they were financing their own living out of it. So this chap, he got behind this and was really helping, because I had no legal assistance, and they were reading through my papers and taking an interest, because it's all exciting to people for a start. And there are videos out there and Facebook, because we started this Facebook page called The Muck Spreader, but he had the passwords for it, he's closed it all down. And you were saying about the national papers, it went viral. I got people messaging from America.
All right, you've jumped ahead again, Charles. Take us through the day and what was going through your head and your goal.
The goal was exposure of the system, to make them look exactly what they are, which quite honestly is a load of shit. That's what they are, is shit.
So it's a metaphor.
A metaphor, yeah. Put very well. I'd spent 3 weeks, because I used to drive in at night, and then I'd sit and eat a kebab from McTurk's, which I've frequented for the last God knows how many years since I was at college. Best kebab in town. And then I'd go back at 6 o'clock in the morning, and I'd sit on the pavement, and I'd watch the buses come and go, and the people and the movement of people, because the thing that was most important to me was people's safety. And we identified a time of 7 o'clock, because at 7 o'clock, the bus would pull in, empty the bus stop. So me there waiting with a 160 horsepower tractor and an 18-ton muck spreader with only 5 tons of muck in it on a busy road, and then you've got to back this great big muck spreader between the bus stop and this tree to get it into position, because back at home we'd loaded the spreader, and you can alter the speed of the chains to feed the muck to the beaters at the back. So it was a case of backing the spreader into a certain position. Then at home I got the spread pattern. I'd been and measured it all up previously. And we put we only spread 5 ton, not fill it up, because we put the 5 tons at the front of the spreader. And I set the speed of the bed chain so I knew how long it was going to be before it started spreading any of the bark chip. So I set the tractor going, and I got some, you know, the red and white warning tape, tied it to the front of the tractor, and I went round a tree, round another tree, round the handrail, back round another handrail, then back round another tree and to the bus stop. So it made an area where the spread pattern was, so nobody, and I got 5 people marshalling people. Nobody could have been hurt. And you know this horrible little man from the who do the police go to? Oh, help me out here, chaps. The body that the legal body the police go to. It's on the tip of my tongue.
I can't remember. I think we probably discussed it yesterday with the cop from Cardiff.
The solicitors that represent and decide whether a case goes to court.
Okay, the prosecutor.
Yeah, the prosecution.
Yeah.
Well, let's just say the prosecution. They're generally funny little people that are a bit not the norm. Anyway, I was a litigant in person, and he said, I put it to you that you endangered people's lives, you endangered public safety, and you obstructed the access to the court. So I made my case to the judge that, you know, we'd put warning tape, there was all the videos and everything, they were looking at the videos, and that proved that it didn't put people in danger. And I said, what's more? I says, my concern for people's safety has been proven. I says, because we took the slurry door out the spreader. I said, I didn't even snap a branch in the tree where the birds can perch. I says, and was there any report of any debris on the wheelchair access to the court? And he looked at me as if I was stupid. I says, no, there wasn't. I says, so that means, I says, you aren't going to get an influx of wheelchairs. I says, so the people on foot, the able-bodied people, I says, all they had to do was use the wheelchair access. And it absolutely, you could see that his face drained.
Well done. What was the ruling then?
1,400 quid fine.
1,400 quid fine.
That was cheap for worldwide press. And what I will say to you at this juncture, Sean, I'm proud of the farmers in Spain, in Germany, in France, right? And I think the British farmer needs to find a little more backbone, because what a wonderful industry to be in. But they've got no balls. Now, as I'll say, on my own, single-handedly, I had the balls to go and tell the court system what I think of them. Because, and here's your reason, and I'm sorry if I've sort of gone from A to B to Z, which I frequently do, and talking riddles that some of my friends laugh about. As I understand the basics of law, when a litigant in person appears in court, the judge has a responsibility to look after him. They will ridicule you. They will tell you that you've got to have a solicitor. They will support all these cretins to try and make them more money. But they have a duty to look after you. So, I can't mention his name, and he was probably retired now, and I hope he's dead. The judge that presided over that decision, that's why I did it, because he didn't look after me. He saw 3 females looking gooey-eyed and all upset, when if he really knew the hell... I mean, they say about a woman being ugly, but the true ugliness of my sister you cannot see because it's within. And the morality of the people, everybody that cared for her, she's kicked them all about. And if her children are proud of her for doing what she's done... Yeah,
Charles, with them taking everything, do you have any chance of getting it back? Is that part of this? Are you trying to get any of it back, or are you just giving up on that?
No. No. It's justice. We need justice.
You just want justice. And what is justice?
Justice is doing the right thing.
But in your case, what would you be happy with?
To bring the perpetrators of this crime to the table and make them explain. Now you're asking me, when you come from the sort of life that I've come from, which is sometimes detached from your everyday lifestyle, if you like, or person. And I've been very gifted, but now I have nothing. Well, no, that's not true. I've got my hands, I've got my kids. And there are one or two very special people in my life. And I mean very special, because friends from all different walks of life, influential businessmen to people, just everyday people in the street. And I don't differentiate between anybody, but now I have nothing. You can see who your true friends are, you know, who the people that really will help you are. And these categories of people, and there's one category that I would really like to just have a poke at. With these agents, and with the way farming's changing, and with the demonstrations that you're seeing around the world, because it's getting harder for farmers, legislation, paperwork, you know, the documentation is, and the thinking time for a farmer when he's on a tractor for long hours on his own, and it can be a good time and it can be a very dangerous time. I know I've been there, because you concoct all sorts of things and you sit there scheming and planning and all this sort of thing. I've lost my thread again.
You were just saying that you were giving the bigger picture of how it's deteriorated for farmers. But I was going to ask you, Charles, how you survive then if they've took everything?
Right, there was a situation where I called the police because of this bully, the bully that threatened my daughter's life. And he was employed by somebody that was stealing stuff wholesale. And what was going on was really quite bad. And when we've managed to save a little bit, and again, I've got to be very careful with that, because that it's a whole nother story. But when I say they've took everything, this particular morning, they started to drive around on my machinery and stuff like that. And I phoned the police up, and the police made this particular person give me the key. They put the keys back in my hand. The entourage of bullies put the keys for this particular machine back in my hand. So we had to show them documentation of ownership. We had to show them proof of insurance. Quite why? Because it was on a private property, I don't know. So we've got the three things. Police put the keys back in my hand, document of ownership, insurance. The next day, I'm thrown in a police cell for 21 hours.
What?
Because I stole the machine that they gave me the keys back for 24 hours previously. Driving with no insurance and criminal damage. And Derbyshire Police, to this day, have not released that charge. And that was 6 years ago.
Bloody hell.
Now, and the station commander, call him whatever you will, came to me and says, "What the hell are you doing here, Charles?" Now, the funny thing that now I find this hilarious, because do you know what I do when I get locked up in a prison cell? And quite a few times I've been in there. I've no criminal record. The first thing I ask for is another blanket. Because then when you decide you can go to sleep, you've got one as a pillar and then pull the other right all the way over you so they can't see you, and then they have to keep going and checking on you. And it really pisses them off. Before and after that, I ask for a piece of paper, some paper and a pencil. I have never seen such a well-sharpened pencil in my life. Now, why the hell did they take me bootlaces, anything I could, belt, the lot, when I've got a sharp pencil, stick it straight in my eye? Is this the intelligence of our British police? They're not clever, are they?
The system's upside down.
Upside down? Christ, Sean, I think that's being fair. So, where are we going now?
So I was asking you how you survive, and you said they didn't take quite everything. There was still something.
No, so I survive. I've been working for a couple of Indian lads. Now, I call them chalk and cheese, and they most certainly are. Very, very. One of them, razor sharp, clever man. And I'm not in awe of him, but I am. He's a fantastic person. His brother, we had a little to do one day, but then we've found a mutual respect, and what a wonderful, very, very different to his brother. But they've provided, shall we say, a safe place for a while.
And how's your daughter doing after all this?
She works for them as well. And how's she doing? I'm hoping they know the true value of her. And I can see, I mean, there was a situation the other day where I had to tell a chap that she's infinitely better at doing her job than he is, and that she got more than he had. Because, quite frankly, she has. And again, I just can't say how proud I am of her. She's the light of my life. Along with a couple of other young ladies.
For the people watching this, Charles, who perhaps are wondering if they can help you or contact you, or are you looking for any help or support from people, or people to contact you or anything like that?
I think it's much bigger than just me, this is. One person that I would like to contact and would like to speak to him, and I'll tell you the reason why. Because I can't believe that somebody can be... And, okay, it's portrayed through an actor. But when you look at Alan Bates...
Bates, yeah.
Now, the way that actor portrays him, and not only that, you know what another sobering thing is? That his wife, even though she contracted cancer, stood by him steadfastly. And you know when you've got a woman that runs away from your kids in favour of booze and whatever she can find in somebody else's trousers, I mean, it doesn't matter, I'll get over that. I've got something far better now. I'm far happier. My kids, two of them are flourishing, and one of them, I only hope that in the not too distant future that boy will come and be brave enough to face the truth, because the truth's out there for him to listen to, but unfortunately he's got the bad side of the story, and I only deal with the truth. So, you know, that's a hope that just out of the three there's one that needs to just have a few home truths and listen. Because his dad's there, never ever faltered, never ever lied to him, and probably the truth's been too painful for him to handle.
So for the viewers then who've just been watching this podcast for the last 2 hours, Charles, is there anything you'd like to say to them in conclusion?
If you open your eyes in the morning, you've all the wealth in the world. If you can bring a smile to somebody's face during the day, you've had a good day. Never trust the system, because you can be in a position that I'm in, was in, am in, and will fight to my dying day to bring clarity to and fight for my kids, for me to be able to leave something for my children. This is what this is all about, for their just desserts. So justice first of all, because I don't want any man sat with a funny wig on or some solicitor telling me what compensation they can offer me, because they can't compensate me for what they've done. That will never happen. And when you look, one of the things that has completely altered my views is this Mr. Bates versus the Post Office. Everybody should watch that. And I would love to speak to that man, because what a calm, decent fellow is portrayed to be, and his wife supported him through everything. What a wonderful woman she was. And if I can get this, some traction in my story, maybe I can protect other people from what I went through.
So, Mr. Bates, if you're out there, get in touch. Viewers, thanks for watching. Let us know in the comments what you thought. And Charles, huge thank you for coming in, telling us this remarkable story.
Thank you, sure.
All the best. Yeah, well done.
Much.
If you're looking for a gift, my new book, Sit Downs with Gangsters, is available worldwide on Amazon. We've interviewed over 1,000 people now, and we selected 10 of the hardest hitting stories to go in this book. Each chapter features the story of one of our podcast guests. Those stories are Shane Taylor, Knife Maniac's Redemption; John Elite, Mafia Hitman for the Gambino crime family; Joey Barnett, 35 years in UK prison; Ian Blink MacDonald, £6 million bank robber; Chet Sandu, Asian smuggler in Spanish Supermax; John Lawson, the hit team commander; David Macmillan, international smuggler's Thai death row prison escape; John Abbott, San Quentin prison shootout and escape; Michael Francis, Colombo crime family capo portrayed in Goodfellas; and Wildman, English enforcer in Arizona prison. Link in description box on YouTube, available worldwide on Amazon. Also, my next book, Untouchable Jimmy Savile, is getting published in December 2023. So check that out as well. It will be available worldwide on Amazon. Thank you for listening. Cheers.